The air in the Oak Haven County Courthouse is thick with the ghosts of 100 years of verdicts, a heavy, cloying mixture of old paper, floor polish, and the faint, metallic scent of human anxiety. It's a smell I've known my whole life, a smell I used to associate with comfort, with the steady, reassuring presence of my grandfather. Today, it smells like a cage. From across the polished expanse of mahogany, Richard Dale buttons his jacket, a crisp, deliberate gesture of a man about to deliver a killing blow. He approaches the bench, his stride oozing a confidence that only a $1,000 suit and a complete lack of soul can bestow. "Your Honor," he begins, his voice resonating with practiced sincerity. "This case is, at its heart, tragically straightforward. Judge Franklin Cole was a pillar of this community, a respected jurist, a beloved man." He pauses, letting the weight of grandfather's name settle over the room. But in his final years, following the devastating loss of his wife, June, he fell under the insidious influence of his granddaughter, the defendant. His hand gestures toward me, a flick of the wrist, as if dismissing a piece of lint. He doesn't look at me. He doesn't have to. I can feel the weight of every eye in the courtroom turning my way. "Miss Mackenzie Wright," Dale continues, his voice dripping with faux pity, "manipulated an elderly man, a man suffering from the inevitable decline of his faculties, to divert a substantial estate away from his only living child, his daughter, Celeste Wright, and her husband, Gavin. The rightful heirs, Your Honor, under any normal, decent circumstances." The words are scalpels, slicing through the carefully constructed composure I've worn like armor all morning. Manipulated, declining faculties, undue influence. They are painting a picture of a monster, a predator, and placing my face in the frame. I focus on my breathing, just as grandfather taught me when I was 15, prepping for my first high school mock trial in this very building. In through the nose. Hold for 4. Out through the mouth. The rhythmic calm is a tiny boat in a churning sea of fury. The facts will speak for me. They have to. Beside me, Amelia squeezes my wrist, a single firm press that says, "I've got this." She rises from her chair, a portrait of Southern grace and steel. Her voice, when she speaks, carries the soft, melodic lilt of her native Georgia, but it's sharpened by the precision of 20 years arguing before the highest courts in the land. If you're new here, please subscribe to our channel for more real stories like this. "Your Honor," Amelia begins, her tone deceptively gentle. The plaintiff's characterization is not only an insult to my client, but it's a fiction that ignores 3 decades of documented history. She moves toward the center of the courtroom, her posture relaxed but radiating an undeniable authority. "Franklin Cole amended his will 10 years ago. Not last year, not last month. A full decade ago, at a time when his mental faculties were, by all accounts, unquestionably intact. A fact his own physician of 30 years will confirm under oath." She lets that sink in before delivering the next blow. "The plaintiffs, Celeste and Gavin Wright, have presented themselves as the aggrieved, abandoned family, but the evidence will show a different story of abandonment." Amelia's eyes sweep across the faces of the jury, then land, for a brief, searing moment, on my parents. "The evidence will show that they are the ones who abandoned their daughter, my client, when she was just 4 months old, leaving her on the doorstep of Judge Cole and his wife, June." A low murmur ripples through the gallery. My mother, Celeste, dabs at a perfectly dry eye with a monogrammed linen handkerchief. My father, Gavin, stares at his immaculate Italian leather shoes as if they hold the secrets to the universe. Amelia's voice drops, becoming intimate, drawing everyone in. 3 decades of love, Your Honor. 3 decades of presence, of scraped knees and bedtime stories, of piano recitals and Sunday dinners. That history speaks far louder than the baseless accusations of those who chose, year after year, a life of absence. She turns, her gaze finding mine, and for a second it's not my lawyer I see, but a friend. This case is not about manipulation. It's about recognition. It's about honoring the true definition of family, which, in the end, is simply about those who stay. The word stay hangs in the air, a silent testament and a damning indictment. I keep my eyes fixed forward on the state seal of South Carolina carved into the wall behind the judge's bench. I will not look at them. I will not give them the satisfaction of seeing the hurt that still, after all these years, aches like a phantom limb. I won't think about the countless school plays where I scanned the audience for a face that was never there, or the father-daughter dances I skipped, pretending I had the flu. I won't think about the hollow feeling on Christmas morning, opening gifts from Mom and Dad that were so clearly picked out and wrapped by my grandmother. Instead, I think of Grandmother June's hands smelling of rosewater and soil as she taught me how to braid my own hair. I think of her lemon poppy seed cake, the Saturday morning ritual that filled the house with the scent of sunshine and citrus. I think of Grandfather's booming laughter as he quizzed me on constitutional law over pot roast, his eyes twinkling with pride. They stayed. For 32 years, they woke up every morning and chose me. And now, in this cold, sterile room, I would defend that choice. I would defend their love. The battle for my grandfather's legacy and for the truth of my own life had officially begun. The courthouse recesses for lunch. The heavy oak doors swing open, releasing the tension into the humid Oak Haven air. Across the room, my mother freshens her lipstick, the same shade of defiant coral she wore in the single, professionally shot photograph she sent me for my 16th birthday. My father straightens his silk tie with manicured fingers that have never known the grit of garden soil or the simple, honest work of fixing a bicycle chain. They are a portrait of detached elegance, strangers playing the part of grieving relatives. Amelia slides a manila folder across the table toward me. They've submitted their financial statements, she says, her voice low. They're building a narrative that your grandfather cut them off, abandoned your mother financially as well as emotionally. My fingers trace the sharp edge of the folder. A bitter laugh escapes my lips before I can stop it. He sent them money for 22 years. Amelia's eyes gleam with the quiet satisfaction of a lawyer holding a royal flush. Exactly. $3,200. Every single month. Wire transferred on the 1st. Without fail. She taps a neatly compiled spreadsheet. I have the canceled checks. I have the bank statements. It totals $845,000. The number is staggering. It's a fortune they spent on Aspen ski houses, Mediterranean cruises, and Manhattan apartments, all the things they chose over raising their own child. I escape during the break, not to the crowded cafe, but to the courthouse garden. It's a small, quiet sanctuary of limestone walls and flagstone paths, a place my grandmother June helped design 30 years ago. And everywhere, there are hibiscus bushes. They bloom in riotous bursts of crimson and pink against the weathered stone, a living, breathing testament to her. June planted hibiscus everywhere. In her garden at home, in pots on the patio, even a small, stubborn one on the kitchen windowsill. Life finds a way to blossom, Mackenzie, she would tell me, her hands deep in the rich soil. Even after someone leaves. There was never a hint of bitterness in her voice, only the quiet, unshakable wisdom of a woman who had watched her only child walk away and had chosen to cultivate love in the space she left behind. I touch the velvety petal of a nearby bloom, and the scent, a faint, sweet perfume, sends me tumbling back in time. I'm 7 years old, standing on a kitchen chair, my small hands covered in flour. The air is thick with the scent of lemon zest and melting butter. Grandmother June is guiding my hand, showing me how to fold the batter for her famous lemon poppy seed cake. Baking is about precision and patience, little bird, she'd say, her hair, already streaked with silver, falling across her forehead. You can't rush it. You have to honor the process. Just like life. Every Saturday morning was the same ritual. Sifting flour, cracking eggs, the satisfying scrape of the spatula against the ceramic bowl. It was more than just baking. It was a lesson. It was her way of teaching me that love was an action, a verb. It was in the measuring, the mixing, the waiting. It was in the showing up. When court resumes, something inside me has shifted. The initial sting of Dale's accusations has faded, replaced by a cold, clear resolve. This isn't about defending an inheritance anymore. It's about protecting a memory. It's about honoring the people who showed me what love looks like, day in and day out, while my parents were merely names on a birthday card. You okay? Amelia whispers, noticing the change in my posture. I've straightened my spine, lifted my chin. Yes, I say, my voice steady. I'm ready. Amelia smiles, a small, knowing quirk of her lips. Good. You look just like your grandfather on the bench right now. The afternoon is a parade of ghosts from my past, each one called to the stand to testify not to legal statutes, but to the simple, undeniable truth of my life. Doris Taylor, the court clerk who worked with grandfather for 40 years, speaks of his unwavering ethics and his mind, which she calls a steel trap for legal precedent, right up until the end. Dr. Reynolds, his primary physician, presents medical records and cognitive assessments that paint a picture of a man in full command of his faculties. Then, Martha Evans takes the stand. Our housekeeper of 25 years. Her silver hair is pulled into the same neat bun she wore while bandaging my skinned knees and teaching me how to iron the perfect crease into grandfather's shirts. She is family, in every sense of the word that matters. Amelia's questions are gentle. Martha, can you describe the Sunday routine at the Cole house? Every Sunday, Martha says, her voice as steady and comforting as I've always known it. Without fail, Miss Mackenzie would come for dinner, even after she got her own apartment downtown. Even when she was buried in exams at Duke Law, she'd drive home. She'd cook his favorite, pot roast, and set the table with Mrs. Cole's good china. And after June Cole passed away? Amelia asked softly. Martha's eyes, cloudy with age but sharp with memory, find mine across the courtroom. Miss Mackenzie never missed a Sunday, not one in 10 years. She'd bring fresh flowers for the table, hibiscus when they were in season, because those were her grandmother's favorite. I blink rapidly, fighting a sudden burn behind my eyes. I can feel the gaze of my colleagues from the district attorney's office, filling 3 rows behind me. They've seen me build cases against corporate fraudsters and white-collar criminals. Now, they are watching me defend the most personal case of my life. Dale rises for his cross-examination, his swagger slightly diminished. Martha, isn't it true that Mackenzie Wright controlled who had access to Judge Cole in his final years? That she isolated him? No, sir, that is not true, Martha replies, her voice ringing with indignation. Judge Cole made his own decisions until the day he drew his last breath. Miss Mackenzie respected his wishes. That is all. Motion to strike the witness's personal opinions from the record, Dale snaps. Denied, Judge Avery says, almost before Dale has finished speaking. The witness is describing observed behaviors, counselor. She is testifying to what she saw. The first real cracks are beginning to show in their carefully constructed fiction. When Judge Avery admits grandfather's final handwritten letter, the one he wrote a week before his heart attack, explaining with perfect clarity why he and June had changed their will a decade prior, I see a flicker of panic in my mother's eyes. For the first time since this ordeal began, I allow myself to believe. Truth, heavy and slow as a glacier, might actually be powerful enough to grind their lies to dust. I am not just the sum of the blood that runs through my veins. I am the product of the values that were poured into my heart. And those values, like my grandmother's hibiscus, were planted deep and tended with a love that could weather any storm. The victory in the courtroom feels temporary, a brief ceasefire in a war being fought on multiple fronts. The next morning, the Oak Haven Post and Courier lands on my doorstep with a dull thud that echoes through the silent, cavernous hallway of my grandfather's house. I don't need to unfold it to know what's inside. My mother's face, artfully composed in an expression of tragic beauty, stares up at me from below the fold. Family estate battle divides Oak Haven legacy. The headline screams. My hands tremble as I force myself to read the article. It's a masterpiece of manipulation, a performance worthy of an Oscar. Celeste recounts a fabricated history of being systematically alienated from her father's affection, of my grandmother poisoning him against her. She weeps for the reporter about the calculated, cruel effort to turn Franklin Cole against his only daughter. There is not one word about the 4-month-old baby she left on her parents' porch like a carton of milk. Not one word about the decades of silence. The phone starts ringing before I've finished my first cup of coffee. The first call is a man, his voice a gravelly snarl. Mackenzie Wright? You should be ashamed of yourself, stealing from your own mother. The line goes dead. 3 more calls follow in quick succession. Strangers, all of them, convinced by Celeste's theater of tears that I am a greedy, heartless monster. By noon, my office voicemail is full. Messages from people I've never met, questioning my integrity. The prosecuting attorney who manipulated her own grandfather. The ungrateful daughter denying her parents their rightful inheritance. The words are like tiny shards of glass, burrowing under my skin. I stand at the window of my grandfather's study, the one he bequeathed to me not in a will, but through thousands of shared hours reading and debating. Rain beads against the century-old glass, blurring the world outside. The garden lies dormant. Grandmother June's prized hibiscus bushes waiting for the warmth of spring. My reflection stares back at me, shoulders slightly hunched, a posture June would have corrected with a gentle hand on my back. Stand tall, Mackenzie, she would say. Like my hibiscus, let the world see your strength. On the bookshelf behind me, her journals are lined up like silent, leather-bound sentinels. I trace their spines, my fingers pausing on one bound in worn green fabric. Her gardening journal. I haven't had the heart to open it since she passed. Hesitantly, I pull it down. Inside, her elegant, looping script details planting schedules and soil conditions. But in the margins, written as if in conversation with the plants she so lovingly tended, are life lessons. Beside a delicate sketch of a crimson hibiscus bloom, she wrote, Hibiscus survive the frost when everything around them appears dead. They know the cold is temporary. The strongest flowers, my dear Mackenzie, are the ones that emerge from the hardest winters. My name, written in her hand, releases a knot of tension in my chest I didn't even know I was holding. It's a message from the past, a reassurance that I was built for this. On the desk sits another treasure, a leather notebook Grandfather gave me on the day I graduated from law school. Inside the cover, in his precise architectural handwriting, is an inscription. Ethics are not situational, Mackenzie. They are the foundation upon which all true justice stands. Never forget that. I remember watching him on the bench one summer during an internship. A defendant, cornered and desperate, had accused him of bias. Franklin Cole hadn't flinched. He simply looked at the man and said, "The truth does not take sides, sir." Later, in his chambers, he told me something I've carried with me ever since. Justice isn't about revenge, Mackenzie. It is the slow, patient, and sometimes painful restoration of truth. The restoration of truth. The words settle in my mind like a stone finding the bottom of a still lake. I will not be broken by whispers and lies. I will not dishonor their memory with bitterness or fear. I straighten my spine. I lift my chin. I will stand tall like the hibiscus. Just then, my doorbell rings. I'm steeling myself for another confrontation when I see old Mr. Henderson from next door standing on the porch, holding a covered dish. He's a retired Marine, a man of few words who has lived next to this house for 50 years. He watched me learn to ride a bike on this very sidewalk. "Saw the paper?" he grunts, avoiding my eyes as he thrusts the dish into my hands. "Nonsense. All of it." The dish is warm. It smells like Martha's pot roast. "Your grandfather was the finest man I ever knew. And your grandmother? Well, June was a saint. Don't you let them tell you otherwise." He turns to leave, then pauses. "We saw, all of us on this street. We saw who was here every Sunday. We saw who shoveled the walk when it snowed. We saw who stayed." He gives a curt nod and walks back across the lawn, his back ramrod straight. I stand in the doorway, holding the warm casserole dish, and for the first time all day, the chill in my heart begins to recede. The court of public opinion might be swayed by my mother's performance, but the jury of those who truly knew us, who witnessed our lives, had already reached their verdict. The courthouse buzzes with a renewed, predatory anticipation the following morning. My mother takes the stand, a vision of curated sorrow in a cashmere sweater the color of a robin's egg. It's a masterful choice. Soft, maternal, vulnerable. My father, he abandoned me emotionally, she testifies, her voice breaking on cue. When Mackenzie came along, it was as if I simply ceased to exist for him. Richard Dale guides her through the carefully scripted narrative. "And your relationship with your daughter?" "I tried," Celeste whispers, dabbing her eyes. "Oh, how I tried. But Franklin and June, they wouldn't allow it. They built a wall between us. They turned her against me." The gallery murmurs sympathetically. I keep my face a mask of neutrality, my fingers clutching the small pearl earring in my pocket that had once been my grandmother's. It's a grounding touch, a tangible link to the truth. Then Amelia rises for the cross-examination. She drifts toward the witness stand, her movements unhurried, a shark circling in calm waters. Her Georgia accent, I've noticed, always thickens slightly just before she strikes. It's a tactical choice, disarming her prey with Southern charm. "Mrs. Wright," she begins, her voice as sweet as iced tea. "You testified that Judge Cole and your mother built a wall between you and your daughter. Is that correct?" Yes, Celeste says, her chin trembling. Completely. Interesting. Amelia retrieves a thick, leather-bound logbook from the evidence table. I have here the sign-in and visitation logs from the front gate of the community where your parents lived. They span 15 years, from 1993 to 2008. Your signature, Mrs. Wright, appears on exactly 10 occasions. 10 visits in 15 years. Would you characterize that as a mother desperately trying to break through a wall? Celeste's jaw tightens. The robin's egg blue of her sweater suddenly looks cold. Those logs, they don't show the times I called, the times I was turned away at the gate. Is that so? Amelia says, her voice still mild. She selects another document, this one a sheaf of printed emails. Because I also have here emails from your personal account to Judge Cole, obtained under subpoena. She projects the first one onto the large screen for the jury to see. May 12, 2001. Subject line, Mackenzie's recital. The email reads, Frank, can't make it. The city is just impossible this time of year. Could you wire the deposit for the new Manhattan apartment? It's urgent. A gasp ripples through the courtroom. Amelia doesn't wait. She puts up another. December 23, 2006. Subject, Christmas. A visit is impossible this year. The Aspen house we're renting has a strict no-children policy. So sorry. Please send our love to Mackenzie. Another email flashes on the screen. Then another. September 8, 2012. Mackenzie's high school graduation conflicts with our Mediterranean cruise. Each date, each casual dismissal of a milestone in my life is a hammer blow against the silence of the courtroom. Finally, Amelia displays a handwritten note from my grandfather. His familiar, steady script fills the screen. It's a page from his personal journal. Broken promises again. Celeste and Gavin were supposed to arrive this afternoon for Mackenzie's 10th birthday. Em waited by the window until midnight. She made them a welcome sign. How do I explain this to her, June? How do I mend a heart that others keep breaking? The tears on my mother's cheeks are real now. But they are tears of rage and humiliation, not sorrow. The courtroom has turned against her. The sympathetic murmurs have been replaced by a cold, judgmental silence. The performance has failed. The mask has shattered. After the recess, my father takes the stand. Gavin Wright, in his tailored suit and with his perfectly coiffed silver hair, projects an aura of success and authority. But his fingers drum a frantic, nervous rhythm against his thigh. Amelia approaches him slowly, her posture almost deferential. Mr. Wright, you're a successful man, a man of business, I understand. I've done well, he says, a hint of pride in his voice. I'm sure you have. Tell me, did you attend your daughter's graduation? A silence stretches across the courtroom, thick and uncomfortable. He clears his throat. Which one? A few people in the gallery stifle a laugh. The judge taps his gavel once, a gentle warning. Any of them, Mr. Wright? Amelia replies, her voice dangerously even. High school? College? Law school? I was often traveling for business, he says, falling back on the standard, hollow excuse of my childhood. I see. And where did your daughter, Mackenzie, attend law school, Mr. Wright? His eyes dart to Celeste, who is staring stonily ahead, offering no help. I believe, was it the University of South Carolina? It was Duke University Law School, Amelia corrects him gently. She graduated summa cum laude, top 5% of her class. She pauses, letting his ignorance hang in the air. Mr. Wright, have you ever visited your daughter's home? The home you are currently suing her for? Not recently. Have you ever visited it, Mr. Wright? At all? Another painful, damning silence. "No," he finally whispers. The questions continue, each one a small, precise incision, methodically exposing the complete and utter void where a father-daughter relationship should be. He doesn't know my address. He can't name a single one of my close friends. He doesn't recall a single birthday gift he might have sent over the past 30 years. He is a stranger, a biological fact, nothing more. Across the room, my mother's knuckles are white where she grips her purse. Her carefully constructed world, built on a foundation of lies and performance, is collapsing around her, and she is staring at the man beside her as if he is the architect of her ruin. The unraveling was no longer just about their case. It was about them, and it was spectacular to watch. As the day draws to a close, just when I think the worst is over, Richard Dale rises with a sudden theatrical burst of energy. "Your Honor, the plaintiff calls Dr. James Morrison to the stand." A man I've never seen before walks forward. He's in his mid-60s, with a shock of silver hair and nervous eyes magnified by thick, wire-rimmed glasses. My stomach clenches into a tight, cold knot. "Who is that?" I whisper to Amelia. "He's not on our witness disclosure list," she murmurs back, her brow furrowed as she flips through her documents. Dale introduces him as a respected geriatric specialist, claiming he has critical, newly discovered testimony about my grandfather's mental state during his final years. "This witness was not disclosed, Counselor," Judge Avery says, his voice edged with impatience. "A recent discovery, Your Honor," Dale insists. "His testimony is critical to establishing Judge Cole's vulnerability to undue influence." Amelia objects immediately, citing procedural violations, but Judge Avery, in the interest of a complete examination, allows for limited testimony. He looks irritated, but he allows it. As the man settles into the witness chair, I notice a peculiar, nervous habit. He adjusts his glasses not with his index finger, but with his middle finger, a quick, odd push at the bridge of his nose. The gesture is jarringly familiar. A memory surfaces, hazy at first, then sharpens into focus. A medical conference grandfather spoke at years ago. A doctor from the audience asked a fawning question, and he had that same strange tick. "Don't worry," Amelia whispers, sensing my unease. "Trust our preparation. Trust the truth." I nod, but my eyes are fixed on Dr. Morrison's hands. He begins to speak, his voice reedy and uncertain, about my grandfather's alleged memory issues, his confusion over finances, his concerning suggestibility. He paints a picture of a brilliant mind in its final, tragic decline. It's a lie. Eso, complete, venomous lie. Grandfather was debating constitutional law with me over dinner the week before he died. He was sharp, engaged, and as formidable as ever. Dr. Morrison adjusts his glasses again, that same middle finger push. And suddenly, I know. My breath catches in my throat. I lean over and whisper urgently to Amelia. "He's not a geriatric specialist. He's a cousin of my mother's, Thomas Reynolds' partner, a dermatologist." Amelia's eyes widen for a fraction of a second, then narrow into slits of pure, focused fury. A slow smile spreads across her face. It's not a pleasant smile. It's the smile of a hunter who has just watched her prey walk directly into a trap of its own making. When Dale finishes his questioning, Amelia rises, the picture of calm. "Dr. Morrison," she begins, her voice dangerously sweet. "You stated you are a geriatric specialist. Where did you complete your fellowship in geriatric medicine?" The doctor, the dermatologist, swallows. My practice has a focus on elder care." That wasn't my question, doctor. I asked where you completed your fellowship. Was it at Johns Hopkins? The Mayo Clinic? Or perhaps you haven't completed one at all, given that your board certification is in dermatology. The color drains from Morrison's face. Dale jumps to his feet, shouting, "Objection! Overruled!" Judge Avery snaps, his eyes boring into the witness. "Dr. Morrison, you will answer the question. Are you a board-certified geriatrician?" "No," Morrison mumbles. "I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, doctor." "No," he repeats, louder this time. "Thank you for that clarification," Amelia says, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Now, you testified that you saw Judge Cole twice in the months before his passing. What was your prior relationship with him?" I hadn't treated him previously." "So, you are not his primary physician. In fact, your office is primarily known for cosmetic procedures, is it not? Botox, chemical peels?" "We offer a wide range of services," he says defensively. "I'm sure you do. And what is your relationship to the plaintiff, Celeste Wright?" Morrison's gaze darts toward my mother, a desperate, pleading look. "She is an acquaintance." "An acquaintance?" Amelia raises an eyebrow. "Not family? You're not the business partner of her first cousin, Dr. Thomas Reynolds?" The courtroom erupts in murmurs. Richard Dale looks as if he's been physically struck. He's staring at Celeste, his expression one of pure, unadulterated rage. He's been lied to. He's been made a fool of in open court. Amelia lets the chaos settle before delivering the final, devastating blow. She places a stack of documents on the witness stand. "These are Judge Cole's complete medical records from his actual physician of 30 years, Dr. Harold Simmons. Records that were, I might add, provided to the plaintiff's counsel 2 months ago during discovery." She turns to the judge. "Your Honor, these records include the results of a full cognitive assessment performed on Judge Cole 1 week after his last appointment with this dermatologist. I'd like to read Dr. Simmons's conclusion into the record." Judge Avery nods. "Proceed." Amelia clears her throat. "Cognitive function remains exceptionally sharp and consistent with all previous evaluations. Patient demonstrates excellent recall of both recent and distant events. There is absolutely no evidence of confusion, impairment, or diminished capacity in his decision-making." She closes the file with a soft, final click. "No further questions for this witness, Your Honor." Dr. Morrison practically flees the stand. My mother is scribbling furious notes and shoving them at Dale, who pushes them away without looking. My father is whispering harshly in her ear, his face flushed a deep, angry red. They are no longer a united front. They are two people in a sinking boat, and they have just started throwing each other overboard. The desperate gambit hadn't just failed. It had blown up in their faces, and the truth was finally rising from the ashes of their lies. "The defense calls Mackenzie Wright." Amelia's voice is calm, but the words send a jolt through me. Taking the stand feels surreal, like I'm watching a movie of my own life. I smooth the collar of my blouse, grateful for the extra starch Martha insisted on this morning. "That judge needs to see you're solid as bedrock," she'd said, her old iron hissing with purpose. After I'm sworn in, the courtroom settles into a profound silence. Every eye is on me, my parents, the jury, my colleagues, Judge Avery. Amelia approaches, her expression gentle. "Miss Wright, there have been many insinuations in this courtroom that you manipulated your grandfather for financial gain. Can you tell the court why you spent nearly every Sunday of your adult life at his dinner table?" I take a deep breath, my hands folded in my lap. "I stayed," I say, my voice clearer and stronger than I expected. "Because I loved him. It's as simple as that. He and my grandmother were my world. Sunday dinner wasn't an obligation. It was the anchor of my week. Did that tradition change after your grandmother passed away? A lump forms in my throat, but I swallow it down. Only in one way. I started bringing the lemon poppy seed cake instead of her making it. Everything else stayed the same. 6 o'clock sharp, classical music on the radio, and grandfather's stories about cases from 1972. A few quiet chuckles ripple through the gallery. And your grandfather's will, Amelia continues. Did you influence his decision to change it? No, I say firmly. His will was changed 10 years ago, while my grandmother was still alive. They made the decision together. He told me about it because he believed in transparency. He said they had decided to leave their estate to the person who had been a part of their life, not to the people who had chosen to be absent from it. Richard Dale stands for his cross-examination, but his confidence is gone, replaced by a weary resignation. He circles the same tired points about influence and opportunity, but the questions lack conviction. His surprise witness blew up his case, and he knows it. Miss Wright, you admit you were aware of the contents of the will for a decade? He asks, trying to frame it as a long-running conspiracy. Yes, I was aware, I answer calmly. Just as I was aware that for 22 years, he was sending your clients over $3,000 a month, money that could have been part of his estate, but which he gave freely, hoping it might one day buy their attention for their own daughter. It never did. Dale has no follow-up. He retreats to his table, defeated. The rest of our witnesses form a bulwark of truth around me. My boss, District Attorney Robert Langston, takes the stand, his imposing frame making the witness chair look like a child's toy. I've supervised Mackenzie Wright for 6 years, he states, his voice booming through the courtroom. She has prosecuted some of the most complex financial crimes in this state. If there were a single person in my office I would trust with my own estate, it would be her. Her integrity is, and has always been, beyond reproach. Professor Montgomery, my mentor from Duke Law, testifies next. Mackenzie worked twice as hard as any student I've ever taught. She maintained her class standing while driving home every single weekend to be with her grandfather. When other students were on spring break in Cancun, she was in Oak Haven, helping Judge Cole with his taxes. Judge Avery, who had remained impassive until now, removes his glasses and speaks directly from the bench, a highly unusual move. I knew Franklin Cole for nearly 30 years, he says, his voice filled with a deep, resonant respect. He mentored me when I first joined the judiciary. In all that time, in all our conversations, I never once saw him make a decision that wasn't thoroughly considered, ethically sound, and rooted in a profound sense of justice. He looks directly at my parents. The man I knew was not a man who could be easily influenced by anyone. Dale's objection is a weak, reflexive protest, which the judge notes for the record without even glancing his way. During the afternoon recess, I step into the hallway for a breath of air and overhear my father's voice. A harsh, furious whisper, coming from near the water fountain. You pushed this too far, Celeste. The dermatologist? Your cousin? You made us look like fools, like criminals. How was I supposed to know they'd have those records? She hisses back. Thomas said it was foolproof. Thomas said, your whole family is full of big talk and bad ideas. This is a disaster. My mother spots me then, her face a mask of fury. She grabs my father by the sleeve and pulls him away down the hall, their unity shattered beyond repair. When court reconvenes, Richard Dale and Amelia approach the bench. After a brief, hushed conference with Judge Avery, Amelia returns to our table. She leans close, her eyes glinting. They're offering to drop the entire suit, right now. A wave of relief washes over me. It could all be over. There's a condition, Amelia adds. They want you to pay their legal fees. I look over at my parents, at my mother's defiant glare and my father's averted gaze. I think of the harassing phone calls, the newspaper article, the public humiliation. I think of them trying to tarnish my grandfather's name, to paint him as a doddering old fool. I shake my head once, a small, sharp movement. No. Amelia squeezes my hand under the table. Good, she whispers. That's what I told them we'd say. The courtroom feels electric as the lawyers prepare for their closing arguments. The gallery is packed now, filled with the old guard of Oakhaven, a jury of community opinion assembled to witness the final act of our family's tragic play. Richard Dale approaches the bench, his suit jacket buttoned, his shoulders squared, a man attempting to salvage a shred of dignity from a lost war. Your Honor, he begins, his voice somber. This case was never about legal technicalities. It's about blood. It's about the sacred, unbreakable bond between a mother and a child. It's about a mother seeking to restore her rightful place in her daughter's life through the inheritance that should flow naturally from a father to his only child. He gestures vaguely toward the gallery. The traditions of this town, the very fabric of our community, honor family unity above all else. Celeste Wright may have made mistakes as a young mother, but what parent hasn't? Should those youthful mistakes cost her everything? Should a piece of paper, a mere legal document, be allowed to sever the sanctity of blood relations? It's a desperate, emotional appeal, a last-ditch effort to sway the court with sentiment because the facts have failed him. When Amelia rises, she carries only a single sheet of paper. She unfolds it with reverence. Your Honor, she says, her voice clear and steady. Mr. Dale is right about one thing. This case isn't about legal technicalities, but it has never been about blood either. It's about choice. It's about presence. It's about who stays. She holds up the paper. This letter was found in Judge Franklin Cole's desk, dated 2 weeks before his death. It was addressed to my client. With the court's permission, I would like to read it. Judge Avery nods. The entire courtroom leans forward as one. Amelia begins to read, and it's as if my grandfather's voice fills the room. My dearest Mackenzie, she reads, her own voice thick with emotion. If you are reading this, it means I'm gone, and that the vultures have, as I suspected they might, begun to circle. I am writing this to give you not just legal ammunition, but strength. You inherit this house, this legacy, not because of blood, but because you stayed. Amelia's voice cracks slightly, but she continues. When Sunday dinners became a painful silence for me after June passed, you never missed one. You filled that silence with life. When law school demanded all of your time, you studied at my kitchen table just to be near. When your parents asked for money, and the bank records will show it exceeded $845,000 over 22 years, they never once, in all those transactions, asked a single question about you. A collective gasp sweeps the room. Amelia takes a breath and reads the final paragraph. A parent is not defined by biology, but by presence. A family is not a name, but a practice. Your grandmother and I chose you as our heir because you, my dear girl, chose us as your family. Every Sunday, every holiday, every single ordinary day when showing up was the only thing that mattered. This house is yours because you are the one who made it a home. Live in it with joy, with integrity, with love. Your loving grandfather, Franklin. Amelia places the letter on the exhibit table and turns to face the judge. Her work is done. The evidence has spoken. And now, the voice of the man at the center of it all has delivered his own verdict from beyond the grave. I feel tears finally press against the back of my eyelids. I squeeze the pearl earring in my pocket, but I don't wipe them away. Not yet. Judge Avery removes his glasses, polishing them slowly with a handkerchief, his gaze sweeping over the courtroom before settling on me. Having reviewed all the evidence, the testimony, and the final correspondence of the deceased, he begins, his voice leaving no room for doubt. I find the will of the Honorable Franklin Cole to be valid, sound, and executed without any hint of undue influence or diminished capacity. He puts his glasses back on, his gaze shifting to my parents. The plaintiff's claim is hereby dismissed with prejudice. He pauses, and a grim satisfaction settles on his face. Furthermore, given the frivolous nature of this lawsuit, the clear evidence of witness tampering, and the attempt to perpetrate a fraud upon this court, I am ordering the plaintiffs to pay the defendants full and reasonable attorney's fees. The gavel strikes the wood with a sharp, definitive crack. This court is adjourned. The sound echoes through the stunned silence. Only then do I allow the tears to fall. Not for the money, not for the house, but for the profound, soul-deep validation of a truth I have carried alone for my entire life. Family isn't the blood in your veins. It's the people who walk toward you when the rest of the world walks away. As the courtroom empties, a slow, murmuring tide of people, my parents rise quickly. Celeste doesn't look at me. She follows Richard Dale through a side door, her back rigid with fury. But my father, Gavin, hesitates. He stands alone for a moment by the plaintiff's table, his expensive suit suddenly looking like a costume that no longer fits. Amelia is gathering her papers, her face glowing with the quiet, fierce pride of a battle well fought. Justice served, Mackenzie, she whispers, squeezing my shoulder. He would be so proud. I can only nod, the lump in my throat too large for words. As I slowly begin to pack my own briefcase, I feel a presence beside me. I look up, and it's my father. Mackenzie, he says, his voice quiet, almost hoarse. It's the first time he has spoken to me directly, without lawyers present, in over a decade. I wait, my hands still on my briefcase, my expression unreadable. He fumbles with his tie, the one that was so perfectly knotted this morning. What your grandfather wrote in that letter? He trails off, unable to meet my eyes. He was right. I was never there. It's not an apology. Not really. It's a confession, spoken into the empty air of the courtroom, heavy with the weight of 32 years of regret. I let Celeste. He starts, then stops, shaking his head. No, that's not fair. It was me too. I chose my work. I chose the easy path. I let her convince me it was for the best. He finally looks at me, and for the first time, I don't see the distant, polished businessman. I see an old man, lost and ashamed. I'm sorry, he says, and this time, the words sound real. For what it's worth. I don't know what to say. There is no magic phrase that can erase a lifetime of absence. Forgiveness isn't a switch you can flip. Why now, Gavin? I ask, my voice flat. Losing, he says with a bitter honesty. Losing everything. The money, the respect. She's not going to take this well. He looks toward the door she disappeared through. I think I just watched my whole life crumble. The life I chose over you. A part of me, the little girl who once waited by the window for him, wants to offer some kind of comfort. But the woman I am today, the woman my grandparents raised, knows better. Some chasms are too wide to cross. Goodbye, Gavin, I say, and the words are not angry, just final. I close my briefcase and walk away, leaving him standing alone in the middle of the empty courtroom, a ghost in the ruins of his own making. I don't feel triumph. I don't feel pity. I just feel a quiet, profound sense of closure. The battle is truly over. Not just the legal one, but the one that has raged in my own heart for as long as I can remember. I no longer need anything from them. Not an apology, not an explanation, not even their absence. I am free. 1 year later, the nameplate on the door to my chambers still catches me by surprise sometimes. The Honorable Mackenzie Wright. Governor Abernathy had called me himself, saying the state needed more judges with Franklin Cole's brand of unshakable integrity. At 33, I became the youngest state judge in South Carolina. The house, my grandparents' house, is no longer silent. It breathes with life. Martha still comes 3 times a week, not because she needs the work, but because, as she says, this house needs people who remember how to love it. Mr. Henderson from next door has become a permanent fixture, coming over every afternoon to help me in the hibiscus garden, his gruff commentary a counterpoint to the gentle work of pruning and watering. The garden is thriving. Tonight, the air is filled with laughter and the rich, comforting smell of pot roast. The Sunday dinner tradition continues, but the table is larger now, extended with all its leaves. Amelia is here, recounting a hilarious story from a recent trial. My boss, D.A. Langston, is locked in a spirited debate with Mr. Henderson about college football. Martha is bustling in from the kitchen, carrying a fresh-out-of-the-oven lemon poppy seed cake, its citrus glaze glistening under the warm light of the chandelier. My chosen family. The people who showed up, not just in court, but in life. After dinner, as I'm clearing the plates, I see a small, unfamiliar car pull up across the street. A man gets out. It's Gavin. He just stands there on the sidewalk for a long time, looking at the house, at the warm light spilling from the windows, listening to the faint sounds of laughter. He doesn't approach. He just watches, a solitary figure in the twilight. After a few minutes, he gets back in his car and drives away. I later heard he and Celeste had divorced. He'd moved to a small town up north, and she was last seen on a cruise in the Greek Isles with a new, wealthy companion. I feel a pang, not of sadness, but of a strange, distant empathy. He was looking at a life he could have had, a home he could have known, a door that was now, forever, closed to him. I turn away from the window and back to the warmth of the room, to the people who fill my life with so much joy. Amelia catches my eye and raises her glass in a silent toast. Later that evening, after everyone has gone, I walk out into the garden. The moon is full, casting a silver light over the hibiscus blooms. They seem to glow in the dark, vibrant and alive. I touch a soft, crimson petal, and I can almost hear my grandmother's voice on the gentle night breeze. Life finds a way to blossom, Mackenzie. She was right. The inheritance was never about the money or the property. It was about this: the chance to continue a legacy of love, to cultivate a life of presence and joy in the very soil where I was planted. It was about understanding that the strongest roots are not those of blood, but those of choice. My grandparents didn't just leave me a house. They left me a home. And it was my turn to keep the lights on. The truest inheritance is not what is left to you, but what is left inside of you.